guys, welcome back to Records Near Me, a podcast for music lovers. This season, I'm taking you up and down the East Coast to some of the coolest record stores, but today I'm heading into the Midwest to visit Karma Records in Indianapolis, Indiana. According to IndyStar, Karma was once the largest independent chain of record stores in the U.S., with about 30 locations in Indiana during the 1990s. The first Karma Records, however, opened 20 years earlier in 1970, and today only 6 of those locations remain open. 3 of which are owned by Jim Ector and Jeff Wicks, and later you'll hear me sit down and talk with Jim Ector in their East Side location that opened in 1972 and hasn't moved since, located at 21 North Post Road in Indianapolis. This store has so much to offer, plenty of records, lots of CDs, smoking accessories, anything you could need for your turntable. The best part, though, was their used records section. It is full of so many gems, clearly carefully curated, and I found so many that I wanted to buy that I had to limit myself. I'll give you guys a haul of what I bought at the end, so make sure to stay tuned for that. By now, Karma's Eastside location has been open for 50 years, and its history is written on the walls. Literally! Jim took me back to the quietest place in the store, which, in hindsight, wasn't really that quiet, so sorry in advance, folks. But on the way back to the office or security room, it kind of seemed to double as both. Jim pointed out the walls of the narrow hallway that were covered with stickers and signatures left behind over the 50 years of operation. Such a cool way to document the past. Some of them were clearly just as old as the store itself. Now, the sounds you're going to hear during the interview, they're not construction, it's not a staticky radio station, it's just the sound of being in a tiny back room of a fully operational record store, and the security footage playing in the background. Nonetheless, you can still hear everything, maybe a little too much of everything, but what are you gonna do? Without further ado, let's go ahead and get on to the interview, which, by the way, was recorded last year in the summer of 2021, just for some reference. Records near me, let's go and see what lies behind a record store's mind. If you're lost, get found. Take in the sound. It's the place to go when you're feeling low. So, if you don't mind, I'll share what we find. I'll make a podcast, so all this will last. If you're lost, get found. Take in the sound. It's the place to go. So let's start the show. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Records Near Me. Today I'm joined by Jim Ector, co-owner of Karma Records right here in Indianapolis. I'm at the East Side location right now. And so this place used to be a chain actually, and there used to be like close to 30 stores or something?
There were, yeah. The first store opened April 2nd, 1970 in Broad Ripple. And it just kind of grew from there and then turned into, well, it stayed an independent.
Okay.
It was, at one time, it was the largest independent chain of record stores in the country.
That's really cool.
Some stores went all the way up into Michigan and over into Ohio. But, you know, over the years, those numbers have come back down quite a bit. You know, the 2000s were not a kind time to record stores around the world, you know, so, but we're still here.
Yeah.
So that's what matters.
I'm glad.
Yeah.
Tell me about one of your first memories of music. What sticks out?
You know, it would be the Beatles' Sgt. Pepper's was the first thing that I heard that, I mean, I heard other stuff. You know, I had the little floppy 7 inches that I played on my little record player and stuff, but that was the first time I heard something that really hit me, you know?
Okay.
And then it just kind of grew from there. You know, I had 2 older brothers that both were really, my parents were really into music.
Okay.
And then both of my brothers were big heavy metal, hard rock guys. So that's still kind of, you know,
your genre,
one of my things. Yeah. So, and then it's just always been there.
Awesome.
You know? Yeah.
You started working at a Karma Music location in the 90s, is that right?
96.
96?
Yes, yeah.
Wow, okay. How'd you land that gig?
You know, I had moved here. I had a small little record store that I owned up in Michigan.
Oh, okay.
And I just kind of falling out with my partner up there, and I just wanted to just get out of Michigan and come down here. My brother and sister-in-law lived down here. So that was over on the west side, and that's where our 38th Street store is.
Yeah.
They live right by the track. And I was on my way out of town to head back up to Michigan to see friends, and I stopped by the 38th Street store to sell some CDs for some extra gas money, and just kind of asked, you know, are you guys hiring?
Yeah.
Missing right behind me the big huge sign that said now hiring. But I hung out for a few minutes, waited for the manager to get back. She hired me, and
wow.
The rest is history.
That's awesome.
That was 96, and I worked. Kind of started there, then I was working at a couple of stores, and then I started working for, if you want to call it corporate, you know, or the headquarters, you know, and I started working with managing those stores. At the time, there were still 5 stores that were owned by the original owners, and then there were all the franchisees. And so along with my business partner, who he's been 35 years, he's been with Karma.
Wow.
And so he and I helped run the 5 stores and helped with the franchise stores. Okay. And then in middle to end of 99, the 2 guys that started it decided that they were going where there was the real money. They were doing construction and real estate and all that stuff. So they were ready to get rid of the stores. So we were able to work out a deal, and we bought the 3 stores we have now. We ended up buying 2 more, but
oh, wow.
Those aren't there anymore.
Okay.
So yeah, we have the original 3 that we bought in 2000.
Wow.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Yeah, pretty cool.
So this is the one you frequent most. Is this your favorite location? Or...
I could not. That's like a child. I can't call one of them my favorite.
That's understandable.
But this is our biggest location.
Okay.
You know, and it's just kind of where I live. 7 minutes from here, probably.
So it's closest,
if I catch all the right lights, I can make it in 5. You know, so it's the closest. You know, so I spend most of my time here. My business partner is at our north side store, and then we have a guy named Doug who works and manages the west side store for us.
All right.
So,
could you talk a little bit about the differences between the stores? I haven't been to the other 2 yet, but I heard they were very different. Everyone is pretty unique.
Well, they are. Those 2 have both been there for a long time too. You know, I think that the 86th Street store has been there since the early 80s. And then the West Side store has been in that area. It's moved a couple of times, but since the late 70s, 78, I think. I guess the differences are just in the history in the place. You know, like I said, this place is, next year is 50 years. It's been right here.
Yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah,
so impressive.
It's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
I don't know how I would call, like what I would say is different between the 3 stores. There's different sizes, you know, for sure.
Yeah.
This store is probably about, and you'll see if you go over there, it's probably about 3 times the size of the other 2 to 3 times the size. But you know, we all sell the same kind of stuff.
Okay,
now,
so a little bit of everything.
Yeah. I think that this store still sells probably a lot more CDs. Okay. You know, we used to think that this side of town was just kind of in a time warp. You know, and so we have a big group of people that still buy, you know, all that 80s metal stuff that I love so much. We sell a lot more of that here than the other stores.
Okay.
But everybody sells a lot of country and rock and hip hop, and you know, so it's hard to say that there's a real difference. You know, they probably feel different when you're inside, but I don't know that I could say this specific difference in each one of the stores.
Yeah,
you know?
that makes sense.
That's a long way of saying, I don't know.
Yeah.
So.
And what were you up to before you got into the vinyl industry? Did you do anything else, or has this always been your...
You know, I can tell you this, that in 11th grade, we had to do a report on what we want to do when we grow up. And I went to the local record store and I interviewed. Wow. It was a store called The Turntable in Michigan. And I interviewed the owner about owning a record store. So
Wow.
I do consider myself very lucky to be able to actually do what I've always wanted to do, you know?
Yeah.
But mostly it was pizza places and movie theaters and, you know, liquor stores and, you know, just that kind of thing while I was just having fun in my, you know, early 20s and stuff before I came up here.
So music has pretty much been your entire life then?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's great.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So what do you think is the best part of the job?
I get to think about, talk about, listen to music 6 days a week. You know, I mean,
Awesome.
That's everything I could hope for. You know, really in a job.
Yeah.
And there's also, you know, I mean, I've been here long enough that. And some of the other guys that work here have, you know, that we've developed a lot of relationships with a lot of people.
Yeah.
And so that's a good part of it too, you know, that each day I don't know who's going to come in, who's, you know, people, maybe somebody I haven't seen in a year or two, you know, there's just a lot of,
that is nice.
so I don't want it to sound cheesy and say, oh, it's the people, you know, but kind of it is. I mean, that's a big part of it. And you know, I don't know, it's, like I said, this is what I get to do all day. I'm surrounded by records here in the back room, and you know, it's
pretty good gig.
It's really pretty fantastic, yeah, for sure.
That's great.
Yeah.
So you guys put on concerts and stuff here occasionally, right?
So we do, I mean, not full concerts. We do in-stores,
little
and
in-store.
bands will come in and play. 21 Pilots played here.
Nice.
That was a big one. You know, we've had Group Love and Bush, and I'm trying to think of who else. Fits in the Tantrums. I'm just thinking back just to a few that we've had, you know, in here. It's always a lot of fun, and it's, you know, usually as soon as they're done, we'll move all the sound equipment out of the way, and then they'll sit down and sign autographs for everybody. You know,
that's
it's
cool.
just it's really cool to see and see people get excited and be able to watch them be able to meet, you know, the artists. And you know, for a long time we would do there was a radio station it's not there now, it changed what it is, but it was called S1E2, and so there was a thing called X Fest, and every year they would do this big festival, and all the bands would, you know, come to our booth. We would sell all the music for the bands, and then they would all come to our booth and sign autographs.
Oh, wow.
I've met a lot of really cool artists and watched them be great to their fans, and then I've seen some artists that are just not cool, and it's really disappointing because that will stick with you, and that'll change how you know, enjoy their music too, you know.
Definitely.
So yeah, it's really fun though when bands come and play. I showed you where we have the stages, and we just kind of clear out that whole back corner, and
that's really cool.
And just pack them in.
Oh yeah, I was gonna ask, how has the pandemic affected business?
You know, once again, we've been really lucky. So our stores closed in March of last year. We were closed for a few weeks, and then started doing not curbside, but basically to the door service.
Okay.
So the doors would be locked, and I'd be in here, and I would, you know, sometimes I'd be going grabbing records and holding them up to see, you know, show them, and they could pick what they want.
One
you know,
this
exactly.
One.
You know.
Wow.
And we sell a lot of other stuff too. You know, if you see in the corner of the store there. You know,
guys
we sell
have
a lot
bunch
of that
of
too.
stuff.
Oh yeah. So it was a lot of exercise. I mean, I'm running, grabbing stuff, coming back to the door. No, I don't want those. I don't want that. And I go put it back, grab different ones, come back. And then in May of last year, so just over a year ago, we were able to reopen. We have never been as busy as we have been for the last year.
Wow.
At all three stores. And that is, I believe, because, you know, people, you weren't going to concerts, you weren't going to restaurants, you weren't going on vacation, you weren't going to movies.
Yeah.
People had entertainment money to spend, and a lot of people were just hanging out at home. What better to do than listen to records and music when you're at home?
Yeah,
you know?
I definitely bought the most records I've ever bought last year.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Gosh.
So, you know, there was a whole bunch of people like you that were, you know, spending their, you know, their extra money all on music and stuff, you know. And so it's been, I mean, it was really just an unreal year, and I feel pretty blessed, you know, that it went that direction for us when you see a lot of other businesses and restaurants that, you know, have either really suffered through it or closed because of it.
Yeah.
You know, we were really lucky. And we have a lot of people that, there were really a lot of people that were coming up here. Again, I talked about the relationships that we've built. You know, this store has been here for so long. I've been here for 25 years. I've seen people, you know, grow up, have kids.
Wow.
Then their kids shop here, and then some of those kids have had kids, and now they come in with it. You know, so we've seen generations of people. Yeah, you know, and so there's a lot of people that were coming up here because they were worried about us, and they wanted to, you know, they wanted to spend their money here, and you know, and make sure that we weren't going to go anywhere.
Yeah, I can relate to that.
So that was pretty heartwarming too. The amount of people that would say something like that when they would come, you know. So it was it was a mixture of people having extra money to spend on something fun, and just people really, you know, wanting to make sure that we were going to be here.
Wow.
Which, it's pretty cool.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Sounds like you built a really nice community.
I really think that we have. You know, there's guys that have been here. The Ricky, the bearded long hair guy right there, has a twin brother that works here too. They've been here for 23 years.
Wow. I mean, that means they must love it.
Yeah. I mean, and so we have a lot of people that have been here for a long time.
Wow.
So yeah, I think that there is a really cool community around each one of our stores that we've, you know, and relationships that we've built with people.
Yeah, that's a really great thing.
Yeah, it is. It is, for sure. Yeah.
The record store I live right next to, I go there anytime I'm stressed, having a bad day, and I mean, by now they know me. It's just, I just love the environment of the record store.
And that's probably a good feeling for you that they know you when you walk in. And so whether they know you by name and it's a cheers situation, or you know, knowing what you like and suggesting stuff to you, like, hey, you might like this one too, you know, that's fun on both sides.
It really is.
To be able to show stuff to people and turn them on to something that they hadn't listened to before is a pretty exciting, good feeling too. For sure.
Do you think you get more locals or more new people, or even mix?
We have a lot of locals, but we also have, Indianapolis is kind of spread out, and there's a lot of people in the, you know, in the little suburbs or whatever you want to call it around it too, that don't have record stores. So we get people that drive, you know, it takes, you know, half hour, 45 minutes, whatever to get here.
Wow.
You do what you got to do for music, you know. But we also have a lot of people that come through when they're in town. We'll get you know, businessmen that are just on, you know, have a little bit of time. You know, we have all kinds of people, you know, that come through that are just visiting, and there are a lot of people that will put in record stores, you know. And anywhere they go, they want to make sure to hit as many record stores as they can, because that's one of the things, I'm sure you know.
That's how I do it.
Yeah, exactly. Obviously you do. You never know what you're going to find in a used section of records. You know, a lot of new stuff you can see everywhere, but the used part is the, you know, what are you going to find? Are you going to find a record like that, you know, in there? You never know. So, so we get people from all over the place, and we always try to give them, you know, a sticker. Sometimes we'll give them a Karma shirt, you know, whatever, just to commemorate their visit here. Bands come in, you know, and shop.
Looking for inspiration, probably.
Maybe. I had one band come in, and I recognized the singer, and we had recently sold the record that we had in stock from them.
Wow.
And I recognized him, and I'm like, oh, I know those guys. And I just went over there, and I saw one of them look and see that their card was empty. Man.
Oh, man.
Of all the times to not have it, you know?
The timing.
Yes, it was terrible. Because we do normally stock them. It was Joywave. Yeah.
Wow.
But I made a joke about it to them. So we talked for a while, and they bought a bunch of stuff. The guys from Ghost, Papa was in here shopping, and I wouldn't have known, because at the time he hadn't shown himself yet. You know, he always has his makeup. And there was another guy with him, and he was asking me about a Twisted Sister poster that we had out in the front window for their documentary. And he had a really strong accent, and I asked him, you know, oh, where are you from, and you know, what are you doing in town? And he said, you know, we're just on. Let me back up. Right before that, the other guy had come over to me and said, can I use your bathroom? I'm like, we don't let people use our bathrooms, but I'm like, okay, nobody's in here. And Sean, who's Ricky's brother, was sitting back here at the desk. So I knew that somebody was back here. So I said, yeah, go ahead,
Yeah.
So while he was back there, I'm talking to the other guy. And I said, what are you doing in town? He said, well, we're on tour, and we had an off day. And so we just, came to do some record shopping. And then he just said, I'm from this band. And he holds up his pass, and it's Ghost.
Oh my gosh.
I was like, oh my God. Now I know who that other guy is because I could recognize his nose, his profile. I knew who it was. Then I just realized who I just let go use our bathroom.
Glad you said yes, right?
Yes, yes, exactly. Because then it would have felt phony if I would have done it afterwards.
Yeah.
Now
actually,
you can use it. Yeah, change my mind.
That's great.
And they were both really, really cool. And afterwards, I'm like, you're Tobias, aren't you? And so we talked for a while. He's very into classic rock, I can tell you that. And then he went over to our other store and shopped over there too.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So you never know who is going to come through here.
Yeah, apparently so.
So I better stock everything from every band just in case. Yes. Like, see who's coming on tour and make sure I've got it just in case. I don't want that situation.
Check the tour list every.
Yes, exactly.
Oh yeah. When somebody comes in and they ask you for a recommendation, what's your process? Do you ask them questions, or do you just look at them and know? What do you?
Well, you definitely cannot judge somebody on what they like by what they look like.
Definitely.
Because there will be people that will just floor me with what they come up with.
Wow.
So it's for. Unless they're wearing like a T-shirt of a band or something like that gives me an idea. You have to kind of find out what they like, what kind of things they like, and then just go from there on what we think they might like, and and then or play stuff for them and let them see if that's what they like,
nice.
and then you just hope that they're really going to like it. Because if they don't, they're probably not going to trust you again when they come back. They're not going to ask you for an opinion again. So
that's true.
So I'm always hoping and always asking, come back, let me know, And every once in a while, if it's something I really like and feel strongly about, I'll tell them, if you don't like it, I'll take it back. Even if it's open, I don't care. I'll take it back. But I'm that confident that you're going to like it.
Nice.
So
that's a good.
Only once in a while will I do that.
Yeah.
But, sometimes if I really feel it, I will.
Yeah.
For sure.
You're really confident.
Yes.
Yeah. I want to know, what is the last album that blew your mind?
Wow. That's a tough one.
Yeah, you can take your time and think. I know it's a tough one.
I mean, if there are things that I can't stop listening to that I just listen to over and over and over again.
Okay.
Would that be? Can we go with that?
Yeah. Definitely.
The last, and this is not my kind of thing. I'll give you a couple. Vampire Weekend.
Really?
And that's really not my kind of thing. Yeah. But I love that album so much, and I listen to it almost not every morning, but when I come in here, especially like last couple weeks getting ready for Record Store Day. I was coming in at like 5 in the morning, and the first thing I would do would be to go put that album on.
Wow.
I can't explain it. I just really, really like it.
So unexpected.
But I also, there is Gregory Alan Isaacoff has an album called That Sea the Gambler.
Okay.
That is another one that I listen to over and over and over. My pick for album of the year last year, and I told these guys the other day, unless something better comes out, I'm just going to say the same album again this year.
Yeah.
Is Brian Fallon, who was the singer for Gaslight Anthem.
Oh, okay.
It's his solo album that he put out last year in March, I think. It's called Local Honey. I love it so much, I can't get enough of that.
All right,
one too.
I'm writing that down. Are there any underrated bands that you think you want to shout out, put people on? Or
Gregory Alan Isaacoff.
Okay.
Brian Fallon.
All right.
No. But yes, those guys. That's a good question too. I think what I think is a group called the Struts. Do you know them? Mm-hmm. Love them. They played here a couple years ago too. They played here in the store too.
That's so cool.
Those guys were all great too. That is a band that, even though they're getting more, they're getting bigger.
Yeah.
That is a band, I think, sound-wise their stage presence. Have you seen them live before?
I haven't.
The stage presence too, like they're
Wow.
made for arenas, like big, playing big, huge places, and they have the sound for it. I don't know. That's a band that should be much, much bigger, in my opinion, than what they are.
Yeah.
I totally believe that.
I agree with you on that one.
They could be. They opened for Foo Fighters. That was a big tour.
Yeah, it was.
But that guy's voice is just fantastic.
Yeah.
That's the most underrated band, I think. Even if they are
that's a good answer.
popular, they should be way bigger than they are.
That was a good answer.
Okay, there we go. Good one.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome.
I appreciate you, especially since it was so last minute. I appreciate you making the time.
Glad to be able to do it, honestly.
Thank you so much.
That was cool.
Thank you for sticking around to the end. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of Records Near Me. I walked out of Karma with 3 used records and, unexpectedly, 1 new one. I took home The Who by Numbers by The Who, of course, Don McLean's American Pie, and Watkins Glen, which is a compilation album of songs from the 1973 Summer Jam that took place in Watkins Glen, not too far from my hometown. So, I thought it was a unique find. I also walked out with a beautiful double LP gold-colored vinyl featuring live performances by Jim Croce, who we lost way too young. It's called Lost Time in a Bottle. Jim worked his magic and recommended it to me, and I was sold immediately. I suggest checking it out if you're a Jim Croce fan. But anyways, next week we're going back down south to visit Grimey's new and pre-loved music in Nashville, Tennessee. Music City! Make sure to like or subscribe to Records Near Me on your favorite listening platform to stay updated and get notified when a new episode is published. And for those of you wondering how an amateur like me can randomly decide to make a podcast, I've been using Anchor by Spotify. It's the easiest way to make a podcast with everything you need all in one place. Let me explain. Anchor has tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. And when hosting on Anchor, you can distribute your podcast on listening platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcast, everywhere. And it's everything you need to make a podcast all in one place. Best of all though, Anchor is totally free. So if you want to make a podcast like me, just download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started.